Welcome to my YouTube channel. That's what we call The Good Life. Today I'm going to be talking about how you can force rhubarb on to get an early spring crop. I'm also going to be talking about a little bit of general rhubarb care. Now, if you've not grown any rhubarb before, it's a really versatile crop to grow. A lot of people think that it's just for puddings. There's so many more things you can do with it, and once you start growing it, you learn to become a little bit more creative with what you do. We've made some wonderful things with rhubarb, not just the normal crumbles and stewed rhubarb to have with breakfast and things like that, but I do a jam every year, so I either do rhubarb and ginger, rhubarb and citrus is a bit like a marmalade. It's absolutely amazing. I also do a chutney, a really awesome rhubarb chutney. I even made curry recently, or last year I should say, and that was absolutely epic. It was a lentil and rhubarb curry and it was absolutely wonderful. Everyone in the house absolutely adored it. It pairs really good with things like mackerel. You can pickle it, you can make muffins with it, you can put it in flapjacks. There's all sorts of really amazing things you can be doing with it. You just need to get yourself a little patch of rhubarb because it's quite pricey in the shops and it grows really easy. So not only am I going to be showing you how you can force some rhubarb on, but I'm also going to be giving you some top tips to get a really bumper crop if you're new to growing rhubarb. So I was really fortunate, and when I came to my plot I had some rhubarb up here which was absolutely fantastic. So I've just nurtured this over the years and it's always provided a really fantastic crop for me. If you've not already got rhubarb, obviously it's a really good time. Midwinter between December and March is a good time to be able to plant it. It's also a really good time to split your rhubarb if you'd like to split your rhubarb. Now you might wonder what the word split means. Basically split means you're just taking a little bit off the rhubarb to either plant yourself somewhere else or to give away to someone else as a gift. I've got 2 clumps of rhubarb here, and if I was going to split it, dramatically, I would only split one half, so because you can't guarantee how well it will grow as well in the first year once you've split it. I've only just taken a little bit off of mine this year because it spreads rhubarb. Once you've got it, it will really spread. Now I have a piece over here, I've got my gloves, which I took off mine and I've split. It had kind of come away from the main crown and was going towards that fruit tree, which I didn't want, but it was quite handy because I wanted to put some somewhere else on my plot. So if this does start to tire and not produce quite so well, I've then got another bit. Now that's the bit that I dug out. It's really easy to split your rhubarb. Don't get too het up about damaging it. Take out as much root as you possibly can, but because the root goes down so incredibly deep, you will break a bit of the root. So don't get bent out of shape about it. I'm sure it will be fine. We've done it lots and times. I've taken lots and lots of pieces off of this. It's almost been like a donor plant where I've given it to lots of my friends and family so they can grow some rhubarb too. I'm going to move that down to another spot on my plot, which leads me on to what conditions they like. They ideally like a sunny spot. I wouldn't put rhubarb in a pot unless it was absolutely gigantic because they have really deep tap roots and you'll struggle to grow it really well if you grow it in a pot. So it's best to plant it in the ground, and in the first year to keep it quite well watered. They are quite thirsty plants, but because the tap roots go down quite deep, they generally find their own water, apart from when it's really dry. Or if I've just picked some off of my rhubarb, then I would normally put a watering can over it just to give it a little bit of a boost. So the other good thing to do to look after your crop is to mulch it. Now at this time of the year, manure is a really good thing to be putting around it. We're really fortunate. We get manure delivered to our allotment for free, so I can just go down there with the wheelbarrow and get a nice amount of it. Now the reason you mulch this time of year is for a couple of reasons. One of them is to put a bit more nutrient back in the soil. You also often find with rhubarb, it kind of grows in a mound and it starts to expose the roots a little bit. So again, mulching it also covers that up a little bit. So when it rains, it washes it away a little bit because they kind of kind of grow up a bit. So this is a really good thing to do to obviously add nutrients. And also with the manure, it's a little bit warm, so with it being a little bit cold, it actually keeps it a little bit warmer as well to encourage the growth as well in the spring. Something I do at different times of the year, so in the summer when I've got lots of grass that I'm clipping at home, I often put grass around it. Now the grass does different things. That actually helps keep the moisture in, which is really, really useful if you get a really hot summer, which, to be fair, they aren't always that great in the UK, but we do get some patches where it is really very hot indeed, and that grass just keeps the moisture in. So what you don't do when you mulch is you don't completely bury the crowns in there, because that could cause them to rot. So what I've been doing is I'm putting it in and around it, because obviously all this lovely nutrition will soak into it, but if I covered it, it could detrimentally affect the tops of the crowns. Not definitely, but it's best not to bury them in it, just in case it did cause a problem. So I'm just moving all this manure up more towards my rhubarb, and I shall probably take a little bit down to pop that in the ground later. So we're now going to start to talk about forcing and how we can get ourselves an early crop. Now commercially, when they force rhubarb, they have great big commercial sheds where they force loads and loads and loads of it on. Well, we don't have that here, so we have to do it a little bit differently. Now forcing rhubarb on is good in many ways. One, it gives you an early crop. Two, you get the most tender, sweet rhubarb. It's quite a delicacy. It's absolutely fantastic. Much sweeter and tastier than the later rhubarb. Not that that's to be discarded. That's still very nice, but if you can force a little bit of rhubarb on, it really is quite delicious. Now you can force it with there's a few things you can use. Now you can get proper terracotta forcing pots, which are absolutely fantastic, but they are really quite expensive, so I haven't got one of those. My father used to use an old metal bath that he used to pop over his, and that used to do the job for him. The reason that you are doing this is to shut out the light. So whatever you use, you are trying to shut out the light to encourage the rhubarb stems to try and find light. So covering it with a terracotta pot or with a metal drum. I have a half a plastic barrel here, which I'm going to use for mine. I've used this several times. It's not the most glamorous bit of kit, but it does exactly what I need it to do. So when you pop it over, just make sure that you don't crush any of the crowns, which is easier said than done, and just pop it over, push it down quite firmly. I've got a couple of bricks that I pop on the top, because just in case it gets a little bit windy, you don't want it taking off. And then every week or every other week I lift it up and I see how it's doing. Now what quite often happens is it takes a while when you don't think it's actually growing much quicker than the bit that you haven't covered, but all of a sudden it bursts into life. And quite often when I come up to the allotment, I find the drum just slightly lifted up, or even it's toppled right off, where the leaves have actually touched the top of this barrel, and the strength of them has actually tipped it over, and that's normally the time that I pick some. What you also don't do is you don't force it again and again and again, because you will deplete the nutrients in it, and that could cause it a detriment. And I wouldn't force both halves either. I would just force one half and let the other half grow naturally. That will recover during the course of the year, and you will still be able to pick on it throughout the summer. But to be too harsh on it and not give it a break you could end up not getting as much as you'd like. Now I do hope that's helped you with forcing rhubarb, and you're going to give it a go if you haven't already. Give us a thumbs up and give us a comment and tell us what you liked best.